Okay, so it is currently 2:19 a.m. here where I am residing, and I thought that I wanted to do a creepypasta reading because, I like doing these. Honestly, I haven't done one since a while, and this is a classic. Now, this one is a classic one. Anyone that was big into them back in the 2010s will know it by its name, Mr. Widemouth. That one in particular was like a really classic one back then, and I haven't read it since I first read it way back when. So I want to see if it's still good, motherfuckers, because it's kind of the point of this. Not really, considering that a lot of them that I've read, the other ones that I've read have been ones that I haven't read before, but whatever. This one I have read before, but it was like when I was a fucking preteen, basically. I might have actually been still a kid at the time because I started reading them at age 9. 'Cause that's when I found the Jeff the Killer narration by Mr. Creepypasta, and everything happened from there. Yep, yep, yep. Anyway, enough fucking dallying. Let's just fucking start this. During my childhood, my family was like a drop of water in a vast river, never remaining in one location for long. Shit. Okay then. Already relatable because that's the same for me. We settled in Rhode Island when I was 8, and there we remained until I went to college in Colorado Springs. Most of my memories are rooted in Rhode Island, but there are fragments in the attic of my brain which belong to the various homes we had lived in when I was much younger. I never lived in Rhode Island, though. Never. No. Most of those memories are unclear and pointless. Chasing after another boy in the backyard of a house in North Carolina, never lived there either. Trying to build a raft to float on the creek behind the apartment we owned in Pennsylvania, neither there. And so on. But there is one set of memories which remains as clear as glass, as though they were made just yesterday. I often wonder whether these memories are simply lucid dreams produced by the long sickness I experienced that spring, but in my heart I know they are real. We were living in a house just outside the bustling metropolis of New Vineyard, Maine. Oof, yeah, Maine, the state full of horror beyond comprehension. Thanks a lot, Stephen King. Population 643. It was a large structure, especially for a family of 3. There were a number of rooms that I didn't see in the 5 months we resided there. In some ways, it was a waste of space, but it was the only house on the market at the time, at least within an hour's commute to my father's place of work. The day after my 5th birthday, oh boy, that's young, good grief, attended by my parents alone. Oof, 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 oof. I came down with fever. Doctor said I had mononucleosis. I've never fucking heard of that. Which meant no rough play and more fever at least another 3 weeks. Oof. It was horrible timing to be bedridden. We were in the process of packing our things to move to Pennsylvania, and most of my things were already packed away in boxes, leaving my room barren. Moving. I know the feeling of moving very well because I've done it a lot in my life as well. My mother brought me ginger ale and books several times a day. Books. That's about right when I was young as well. And they served the function of being my primary form of entertainment for the next few weeks. Boredom always loomed just around the corner, waiting to rear its ugly head and compound my misery. I don't exactly recall how I met Mr. Widemouth. I think it was about a week after I was diagnosed. My first memory of the small creature was asking him if he had a name. He told me to call him Mr. Widemouth because his mouth was large. In fact, everything about him was large in comparison to his body. His head, his eyes, his crooked ears, but his mouth was by far the largest. Okay, so far, yeah, this is honestly like holding up from what I remember. It's fast paced. It gets to the point really fast and snappy. It's also like I haven't seen a single punctuation error yet. I mean, you guys can't see it because it's audio-based video, but oh well for you, motherfuckers. Oh yeah. Anyway, you kind of look like a Furby. I see slip through one of my books. I don't even. Oh man. Mr. Widemouth stopped and gave me a puzzled look. Furby, what's a Furby? He asked. I shrugged. Oh, the toy, a little robot with the big ears. You can pet them and feed them almost like a real pet. Oh, Mr. Widemouth resumed his activity. You don't need one of those. They aren't as the same as having a real friend. Okay, boy, that's a bit creepy. I remember Mr. Widemouth disappearing every time my mother stopped by to check in on me. Hmm. Okay, that's one check mark for this thing being real. Because if it was imaginary, why would it hide? You know? I lay under your bed, he later explained. I don't want your parents to see me because I'm afraid they won't let us play anymore. Hmm, fuck that. We didn't do much during those first few days. Mr. Widemouth just looked at my books, fascinated by the stories and pictures they contained. The third or fourth morning after I met him, he greeted me with a large smile on his face. I have a new game we can play, he said. We have to wait until your mother comes to check on you because she can't see us play it. It's a secret game. I don't like that. I really don't like that. Mm-mm. Stranger danger, motherfucker. After my mother delivered more books and soda at the usual time, Mr. Widemouth slipped out from under the bed and tugged my hand. We have to go to the room at the end of this hallway, he said. I objected at first, as my parents had forbidden me to leave my bed without their permission, but Mr. Widemouth persisted until I gave in. The room in question had no furniture or wallpaper. Its only distinguishing feature was a window opposite the doorway. Mr. Widemouth darted across the room and gave the window a firm push, flinging it open. He then beckoned me to look at the ground below. We were on the second story of the house, but it was on a hill, and from this angle the drop was further than 2 stories due to the incline. Fuck. I like to play pretend up here, Mr. Widemouth explained. I pretend there's a big, soft trampoline below this window and I jump. If you pretend hard enough, you bounce back up like a feather. I want you to try. Okay, yeah, I just gotta chill up my spine. This is actually really. Oh, I wasn't expecting this to actually hold up. What the fuck is going on? Like, I was a 5-year-old with fever. So only a hint of skepticism darted through my thoughts. I looked down and considered the possibility. It's a long drop, I said. But that's all part of the fun. It wouldn't be fun if it was only a short drop. If it were that way, you may as well just bounce on a real trampoline. Uh, this is actually really. No, sir. No, 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 no. No, sir. Okay, I toyed with the idea, picturing myself falling through the air only to bounce back to the window on something unseen by human eyes. But the realist in me prevailed. At 5 years old, the realist prevailed, huh? That's neat. Uh, Maybe some other time, I said. I don't know if I have enough imagination. I could get hurt. Mr. Widemouth's face contorted into a snarl, but only for a moment. Anger gave way to disappointment. If you say so, he said. He spent the rest of the day under my bed, quiet as a mouse. I realized that he hasn't actually really described what this thing looks like, other than it looks like a Furby, and that it smiles and has big things, like big features compared to its body. Which, okay, that's a bit of it. That's a description. I'm sorry, I'm being a dumbass. Following morning, Mr. Widemouth arrived, holding a small box. I want to teach you how to juggle, he said. Here are some things you can use to practice before I start giving you lessons. I looked in the box. It was full of knives. Okay, yeah, this thing needs to stop. Yeah, it needs to stop. My parents will kill me, I shouted, horrified that Mr. Widemouth had brought knives into my room, objects that my parents would never allow me to touch. I'll be spanked and grounded for a year. Smart kid. Mr. Widemouth frowned. It's fun to it's fun to jiggle with these. Jiggle? What fuck? It's fun to juggle with these. I want you to try it. I pushed the box away. I can't. I'll get in trouble. Knives aren't safe to just throw in the air. Mr. Widemouth's frown deepened. Okay, he spelled it. There's a first spelling mistake. They spelled it like deep end, like the deep end of a pool, instead of the actual spelling. Mr. Widemouth's frown deepened into a scowl. He took the box of knives and slid under my bed, remaining there for the rest of the day. I began to wonder how often he was under me. That's a fucking disturbing thought. I don't like that. I started having trouble sleeping that night after that. Mr. Widemouth often woke me up at night saying he put a real trampoline under the window. A big one that I couldn't see in the dark. I always declined and tried to go back to sleep, but Mr. Widemouth persisted. Sometimes he stayed by my side until early in the morning, encouraging me to jump. He wasn't so fun to play with anymore. Yeah, no shit. Fucking hell, mate. I'm actually surprised that this is as good as I remember it being. It's not scaring me as much as it did back then, because back then it gave me fucking nightmares. But yeah, this is still actually kind of really good. I like it. My mother came to me one morning and told me that I had permission to walk around outside. She thought the fresh air would be good for me, especially after being confined to my room for so long. Ecstatic. He spelled that wrong. They spelled that wrong. They put it like EX and then static, which is not how you spell that word. I put on my sneakers and trotted out to the back porch, yearning for the feeling of sun on my face. Mr. Widemouth was waiting for me. I have something I want you to see, he said. I must have given a weird look because he then said, It's safe, I promise. I followed him to the beginning of a deer trail which ran through the woods behind the house. This is an important path, he explained. I've had a lot of friends about your age. When they were ready, I took them down this path to a special place. You aren't ready yet, but one day I hope to take you there. Knowing where that path leads, because I've heard this before and the memory's trying to come back to me. Holy fuck, that line's chilling. I hate it. Uh-uh. I returned to the house, wondering what kind of place lay beyond that trail. 2 weeks after I met Mr. Widemouth, the last load of our things had been packed into a moving truck. I would be in the cab of that truck, sitting next to my father for the long drive to Pennsylvania. I considered telling Mr. Widemouth that I would be leaving, but even at 5 years old, I was beginning to suspect that perhaps the creature's intentions were not to my benefit, despite what he said otherwise. For this reason, I decided to keep my departure a secret. Smart fucking kid. My father and I were in the truck at 4 a.m. He was hoping to make it to Pennsylvania by lunchtime tomorrow with the help of an endless supply of coffee and a six-pack of energy drinks. Good fucking grief, that's a shit ton of caffeine. If he has a heart attack, I'm not surprised. uh, you seem more like a man who's about to run a marathon rather than one who's about to spend 2 days sitting still. Early enough for you? He said, Oh my god, that's something my dad would say. Something my dad would say, fucking Christ. I nodded and placed my head against the window, hoping for some sleep before the sun came up. I felt my father's hand on my shoulder. This is the last move, son, I promise. I know it's hard for you, as sick as you've been. Once Daddy gets promoted, we can settle down and you can make friends. I opened my eyes as we backed out of the driveway. I saw Mr. Widemouth's silhouette in my bedroom window. He stood motionless until the truck was about to turn onto the main road. He gave a pitiful little wave goodbye, steak knife in hand. I didn't wave back. Years later, I returned to the New Vineyard. The piece of land our house stood upon, was empty, except for the foundation, as the house burned down a few years after my family left. Out of curiosity, I followed the deer trail that Mr. Widemouth had shown me. Part of me expected him to jump out from behind a tree and scare the living bejesus out of me, but I felt that Mr. Widemouth was gone, somehow tied to the house that no longer existed. The trail ended at the new Vineyard Memorial Cemetery. I noticed that many of the tombstones belonged to children. You fucking shit, man. Wow. Um, Jesus fucking Christ, man. Um, hmm. Wow. Okay then. Yeah, that was my I hadn't read that in years, and that still holds up. I'm genuinely surprised. Uh, most of the ones that scared me back then are just absolutely awful. And honestly, reading some of those just to laugh at them would be really fun as well. But I was actually expecting to do that with this one, and I wasn't expecting to actually be kind of creeped out. Like I had chills going down my spine at that, like some lines there. So, congrats to the author, wherever they are now, who even fucking knows it's been like 13 years since he wrote that, according to the page. But yeah, that was a good one. That's still a good one. I'm surprised. The descriptions are just enough to make you use your imagination a bit. The fucking thing is just creepy as it is.